This is Work University, Episode 20. This is Work University, and I'm Annalisa Felix. This is where I talk to people from various employment backgrounds and get a better idea of what their job is really like. If you're just graduating or looking to change careers, you're in the right place. Now let's get to it.
Hello, today I'm here talking with Roberto, and I am going to find out what it means to be a clinical engineer. So, Roberto, you're a clinical engineer, and if I'm, say, in high school or junior high, and you want to explain to me what a clinical engineer is, what does that mean?
Hi. Yes, absolutely. Clinical engineers, also known as biomedical engineers, we are like computer technicians, but for medical equipment. We repair, fix, maintain, and provide service to just about all types of medical equipment in the medical center, in any hospital.
Okay, so that could be anything from all the machines, just any machine, basically.
That's right. In fact, clinical engineering or biomedical engineering is an extremely broad field. I happen to work in a hospital, and I fix and maintain medical equipment in a hospital. And if you think of an area of a hospital that you've heard of before, that area has medical equipment. And so from the emergency room to the operating rooms to the patient rooms, you name it, the laboratory, X-ray department, imaging, every corner of the hospital has some type of medical device. My department, my career, what we do is provide service for those medical devices.
Wow. Okay, so and on a day-to-day basis, I'm sure, you're fixing different machines or you're getting calls to kind of troubleshoot and things like that. And so what do you do? Like, what's your day-to-day most generally?
In my field, I happen to work in a medical center, and so we provide service for equipment that's already in service. However, there are clinical engineers that work on the design side. They work for manufacturers, and they help build and design these medical devices. Biomedical and engineers can also be found in other parts of industry, such as people who make artificial body parts, artificial legs and artificial arms, and the future of artificial organs such as eyes and pancreases and livers and lungs and artificial hearts. So my career can be very, very vast in the different parts. Again, I happen to work in a hospital. My typical day coming into a hospital is to fix and maintain things that get broken in the medical center.
Mm-hmm.
The devices that we have in the medical center are prone to use over and over and over.
Mm-hmm.
So just like your car would need a tune-up every so often, these devices also need calibration every so often. So
Mm-hmm.
on a yearly basis, we calibrate these devices so that makes sure that they're accurate and they're safe. We also fix devices that get broken because of human error. Sometimes we're just being careless, and sometimes there's accidents. And so my department provides the service to bring these devices back into working condition and make sure they're safe for our patients.
Okay, so not only do you want to make them safe for the patients and make them functional for the day-to-day, because these things are being used 24/7, right?
Just about, yes,
And
just
not
about.
and not only that, they are connected to the electronic medical record systems. I mean, they provide data that needs to go into computers, so you have to deal with that connection as well.
That's absolutely correct. Over the course of time, the medical devices have become smart as well. Just like your phone, they've become smart. Our medical devices also have the ability to send and receive data. So my job, while before was only to fix stuff, kind of like a computer technician fixes computers, I fix medical devices, which for the most part are computers on the inside. However, these computers are now smart enough to know to send information. And the information goes into, you said, an EMR, an electronic medical record. And this is where doctors, physicians, where nurses, where even ourselves are, there's data that can be put in the record of the patient for viewing for historical for reasons to be reviewed at a later time.
Mm-hmm.
And so we make sure that these devices can talk to each other.
Hmm.
so that the records, the devices, and all the data can go to a repository somewhere.
Okay, so if I'm walking into a hospital room, not a surgery room, just a regular room, you could have anywhere from 5 to 6 machines going at one time, correct?
Absolutely, yes.
And you need to know what's happening at all times with all of them and how to fix them and how they're connected and wiring and things like that.
Absolutely. So a typical patient room, medical surgical room, will only have like you said, 5 or 6 devices. But if you go to an intensive care unit,
Hmm.
you may have upwards of 15 to 20 devices in there, some of them being life support equipment like a ventilator
Hmm.
um, that helps you breathe, or a heart-lung machine that keeps you alive right after heart surgery, or if you have a weak heart.
Hmm.
Um, and so my job, my engineers, what we have to do is get training on all these devices and make sure that they're working properly.
Right. So have you ever been in a situation where it's, say, surgery and, these machines are man-made and, they can break down at any time. Have you ever seen a situation where there's a surgery happening and something shuts down when it shouldn't?
Yes, absolutely, and that's why my department exists, because things go wrong from time to time. Things are not perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to have systems in place to make sure that patient care is not interrupted.
Mm-hmm.
Things break in the wrong time all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have backups, we have duplicates, and we have engineers that are ready to go within a couple of minutes. We have a response time of within a few minutes to be in the room, in the surgery suite with the physician to try to troubleshoot, to try to fix the device that's in question, or to replace it on the fly, on the spot as needed, so that the patient's surgery can go off properly.
Now, are there backup generators for power?
That's correct.
Okay.
So the generators for power are there in case the city loses power, the main power for the hospital, and then the emergency generators will provide power for the hospital. And so we have, yes, emergency backup power.
Okay. Wow, that's a lot. And, I could be going in 20 different directions with this, but I need to move on.
Of course, absolutely.
So, how does somebody decide to be a clinical engineer? Because going into school, I mean, that's not something that comes up on the radar unless I know somebody who does it or unless, one of my
That's right.
parents does it. So, how do I study for that, or how do I, is there a certification, or how does somebody get into to be a clinical engineer?
You're right. My field, clinical engineering or biomedical engineering, is a relatively new field. It's been around for a long time, but it wasn't really recognized.
Hmm.
So I would say within the last 20 to 30 years um, that there has been awareness and programs for proper education, formal degrees in biomedical engineering.
Hmm.
And usually the type of people that end up gravitating to this field are people who like sciences, like math, like physics, and also have at the same time an affinity towards healthcare, towards the human body, learning how the body works.
Hmm.
So you got to remember that these devices are basically reading and duplicating the functions of the body.
Hmm.
If you have a heart monitor, it's picking up the electrical signals from your heart and interpreting them on the screen with the little squiggly lines. If you have a heart-lung machine, you have a device that's literally reproducing the function of your heart and your lung during heart surgery. So these devices mimic and copy the functions of the body.
Hmm.
So we as engineers have to understand not only the technical electronic parts of the machine, but understand the body functions. And
Uh-huh.
our bodies can be summarized into models such as electrical wiring for the nervous system,
Hmm.
plumbing for our heart and our arteries and our veins.
Hmm.
We have mechanical systems to reproduce the function of our bones, our structures. So as engineers, we have the science, the physics to understand and reproduce models of the body in electrical and mechanical terms.
So that's fixing and going into the hospital and maintaining these machines, that's kind of the glamorous part of it. What's the not so behind the scenes glamorous part of it? Do you have any administrative
Right,
things you have to do from day to day that
right,
isn't so fun?
right. So you're right. Patients in a hospital are here for 24 hours a day, and things break at all times of the day. The not so glamorous part of my job is that my day doesn't end at 5 p.m. My department is on call 24 hours a day, every day of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And when things break after hours, when things break at 11 o'clock at night, at 2 in the morning, my department has to respond to make sure the equipment is working properly.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we have to come in to the medical center to make sure we fix the problem so that the patient can be receiving the treatment they need.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the not so fun parts about my job. And then the other part is, of course, the paperwork, but that's everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Our job, because it involves patients and safety, we have to document everything that we do. We have to make sure that every device has proper annual documentation of everything that happens,
Mm-hmm.
not just decalibrations, the annual preventive maintenance, but all the service that has been done to it, any software upgrades, any recalls that may have happened during the course of the year. The documentation is one of the key areas of success for our program.
Okay. So now let's kind of shift gears a little bit. What was your path to get here? Because, like I said, this isn't one of those careers where you graduate from high school and say, I want to work on medical devices. So
That's right.
give me the,
Unless you know somebody. That's right.
exactly. So what was your, path to getting here?
So there are many paths to becoming a biomedical engineer or clinical engineer. Probably the most popular one is to get a 2-year electronics degree.
Mm-hmm.
And that gets your foot in the door in a hospital. By now, and that was popular, 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
By today's standard, there are many community colleges that offer a proper biomedical electronic technician 2-year certificate. In my particular case, I kind of stumbled across it. I actually started college with aerospace engineering in mind. I wanted to learn how to build rockets and airplanes.
Mm-hmm.
However, in my particular case, in the late 80s, when I went to college, the aerospace industry was not so good. And so when I spoke to my advisor and we talked about my interests, one of my interests was medicine and electronics.
Mm-hmm.
And so he offered, in my particular school, I went to USC, they had one of the first biomedical engineering programs in the country.
Mm-hmm.
So I happened to be at the right place at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
And there's actually not that many biomedical engineers with a bachelor's degrees. Just about everyone in my industry only has a 2-year electronics degree.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm an exception to the rule by having a bachelor's degree, but that has changed over time. And by today's standards, you can find a lot more universities offering a biomedical engineering program, bachelor's degree, and even master's degrees in biomedical engineering.
Okay.
Absolutely.
What advice would you give to somebody who wanted to maybe get into this position? I mean, what would you tell them, would be some of the highlights, some of the lowlights,
Sure.
maybe go and take a shortcut here, talk to this person, what would you tell somebody now, looking back if somebody wanted to get into that line of
Right.
work?
So if somebody wanted to consider this field as a career,
Mm-hmm.
I would ask them to make sure they understand what their passion is. In order to really appreciate this field, you have to have a passion, number one, for electronics. Someone who enjoys fixing things has a lot of appreciation for mechanical skills and electronic skills.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, someone who has an appreciation for the latest and greatest in technology. And one of the gifts that I have in my particular, which makes me love my job, is I am on the cutting edge of being exposed to the latest in technology in medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And an example of that, today we are experimenting with 3D imaging for surgery. We're using navigation technology, kind of like satellite 3D, navigation, using that technology inside the surgery suite, which allows the doctors to pinpoint accuracy, do surgery on tumors, brain tumors or spine surgery, things that couldn't have been even dreamt about, 10, 15 years ago. I get to work with surgical robots. I get to work with this amazing technology for imaging to see in three-dimensional the inside of a person's body, looking at all the tissues and all the veins and all the nerves and all the bone structures, all from this technology that is able to image and see CT scans, MRIs, and nuclear medicine. It's impressive to see how far technology has come. And probably most impressive is that the advances in technology are getting faster and faster with each year that go by. So we are actually leaps and bounds growing in technology as time goes by.
Wow. I mean, not even to mention virtual reality, the different types,
Yes.
the different types of imaging that is available now, because I've seen where they have training on screens or even, what is it, holograms? There's hologram
That's
training
right.
now. It's
That's
just
right.
amazing what I'm seeing happen. And so if that happens, does that fall under your department to?
That's right.
Wow.
We get to manage that technology. An example of one of the benefits of this technology is that many doctors today don't have to go to an actual cadaver lab to do an autopsy, to do research, to learn about the human body. They can actually go to a simulation center, and we have virtual cadavers. And the application allows you to say, show me only the nervous system. And the computer model will show you just exactly the systems of the body that you want to see. Show me only the circulatory system. Show me only the bone structures, and so you can do cross-sectional views. You can see musculoskeletal structures in layers. And that was something that was very time-consuming. You needed to go to a cadaver lab, but by today's standards, you can do this all virtually now.
Wow. And 3D printing. I'm sure, you work with the 3D printers
Yes,
who build body parts to work on as far as training and things like that, right?
That's correct.
I
The
love
3D
it.
printing, yes, it's a lot of fun to be exposed to all this technology. We use 3D printing to, number one, reproduce models and see structures. But we also use 3D printing with medical devices. And we use 3D printing to make spare parts, to make solutions, and sometimes we need to create a solution for something that hasn't been invented yet. And the 3D printer allows us the flexibility to create something out of the blue, an idea that someone has to provide a solution for one of the medical devices.
Wow, that's great. Roberto, you've given me so much information here, and this is the kind of thing that I want to introduce to somebody who has no idea what this is, or maybe even give somebody who does a different glimpse of something about this position. So I want to thank you, and I really appreciate you, giving me your time and your expertise on this, field of biomedical and clinical engineering. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Thank you for listening. I hope you liked this episode. If you have a particular job you'd like me to look into, send me an email at workuniversityforyou@gmail.com. That's workuniversity, the number 4, the letter U, @gmail.com.